Alright, episode 5. Let's freaking go. The Animaster. The kind of knowledge hidden in plain sight. Cat nuns. Max Spears. 24-hour year. Ooh, we got some cool ones. Teeth implants at birth. What? New chronologies and history denials. Okay. Let's freaking go. I'm down. Bro, we're gonna get some good. USSR never collapsed, dude. Tier 5 is gonna be a banger. I'm so excited. Let's freaking go.
Reactionless drive is in reference to a theory in physics of the propellantless motor, which, if you're familiar with the movie Interstellar, is the ship at the end that manages to move off of its own motion, so without needing any fuel source. And theoretically, it could lead to a forever-lasting engine that does not require fuel. Theories range on how this could be accomplished. Actually, another thing mentioned later in this episode is a thought process that could lead to a propellantless motor. Most often it has to do with gravity and the idea that if you can make gravity work in a centrifugal motion, it could be used as a propellant. Enneagram is something that you may be familiar with, as it is a very popular online test that you can take that determines your personality type on a series of numbers 1 through 9, so there are 9 different personality types that you could be. However, the roots of this are a bit more deep than you may think. The origins of Enneagram are traced back to esoteric and mysticism, and it's the idea that it's not just your personality type being determined, but it is the manner by which you can achieve enlightenment. So through this personality test that you can take, you can figure out how to find your higher self. Commentary Earth has 2 real theories, the first of which, and the more common one, being that the Earth only exists in the form that it does, or is only possible to exist because of comets. Both the crust exists as fertile grounds because of comets that hit it however many million years ago, or the idea that as comets pass by the Earth, they deliver the necessary nutrients and trace elements that we need in our ecosystem to continue to survive. The other theory is that Earth itself was originally a comet of another system, and the high temperatures led to gas exposure, which led to the conditions needed to create our now planet Rockmen, or the rock apes, are in reference to a group of Sasquatch-like creatures that were seen by American GIs while in Vietnam. Batututs, as they were called by locals, were so predominant in the area that one—
Dude, that looks like one of those old, really cringe Power Ranger costumes, like the villains wore in like Mighty Morphing Power Rangers 20 years ago.
Mountain that American GIs were stationed on was known as Monkey Mountain because every patrol that went out came back reporting that they had seen the Rockmen. It was so predominant that
you go into the forest and you find an NFT. No!
1974, after the war was over, an NVA general led an entire expeditionary force back into the combat zone that they fought Americans in Vietnam just to see if they could discover these creatures. And if you're curious about what they would do, they would see people, begin throwing stones at them, and then run away.
What?
Some stories even saying that they threw back grenades that the Americans had thrown. Despite this, none were ever caught or no bodies were ever found, and it's believed that they lived in the caves and rat tunnels in the Vietnam combat zones. Cap Dwa is a name given to the skeleton of an Argentinian giant, which has been famous for some time throughout history.
Bro, there are a lot of these giant theories. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of creepy how many of these giant show up, like, consistently throughout this conspiracies. That's scary.
History. Not only that, but this 12-foot tall skeleton has 2 heads. And the story goes that in 1673...
That's scarier. 2 heads? Yep.
Spaniards had captured it in Argentina and were bringing it back to Spain. They had it tied to the mast of the ship, to which the giant broke loose, killed 4 sailors, and was eventually killed by the crew, to which the body was brought back and hosted in museums and circuses and things such as. Also, as far as a deeper dive is concerned, there's absolutely going to be one about giants and Agartha and that whole sort of canon of philosophy. I just haven't decided if I want to do them together or separate yet, but there will be one, trust me. So I come to you now with another shame, such as I had with Nexus 7. Protodyte, the word proto means before or original, and dite means small or mite. So I imagine it has something to do with microscopics or biotech, like nanotechnology or something such as, but Protodyte is also the name of something from the Bionicle lore, and I'm not kidding. So everything I researched just led to that, and I promise I tried, but I could not find anything. So like Nexus 7, this is my second failure, that if one of you can mention in the comments to find out for the corrections video, please do, but I come to you shameful, so sorry about that. Cat nuns is in reference to a group of nuns who were living in a monastery in the Middle Ages of France.
I'm pretty sure cat nuns is like the name of a hentai, right? It has to be the name of a hentai.
Who one day, for seemingly no reason, one of the nuns meowed to another, to which that nun meowed back. And then they went and did it to another one, and it got to the point where the entire monastery exclusively communicated through meows. Keep in mind, these nuns were also interacting with people of the town, and anytime they would come out to buy supplies or whatever, they would meow to the people there too. It got to be such a problem that the town hired the army to come in and threaten to whip the nuns to death if they didn't stop meowing, and even then, it took some time. This is often chalked up to a case of mass hysteria, as was the dancing plague that I mentioned in the last tier. However, it's still odd that this happened.
Bruh, who keeps putting shrooms in the holy water?
at all. Max Spires was a famous conspiracy theorist from England who claimed that at a young age he was kidnapped to be a part of a government super soldier program, to which he then escaped and became dedicated to outing the British government, which is why labels like conspiracy theorist were thrown on him so often. He spoke at several TED Talks and different conferences about being weary of one's own government, and led people on ideas such as investigating more into whatever the news propagates and things like that. That was until he went to visit his friend in Switzerland, and then while sitting on the couch began throwing up a black liquid and died in his friend's home. The cause of death to this day is still weird, and a day before he died, he texted his mom that he was onto something, and if anything happens to him, to investigate. Not only that, but his fiance came out afterwards and said at the conference he was giving the next day, he was going to expose several elites that he had found connections to, and then he dies from throwing up black goo, so I'm sure those aren't connected at all.
Yo, what the frick? That's crazy. Dude, the best way to corroborate a nutcase's story is to actually kill him. It's so messed up.
Acoustic attacks is in reference to an event that happened at the American Embassy in Cuba in August of 2017. Several US and Canadian embassy members all of a sudden began feeling these intense pains in their heads where they were unable to think or function, to which they all evacuated the embassy, and it turns out they all suffered severe brain damage. While there was no direct source of this issue, it's believed that acoustic attacks were the culprit, or essentially low frequency or unperceivable attacks of sonic vibrations or sound that lead you to pain or passing out. And we know this technology exists because it's actually used in riot control techniques. This was such a big deal that it led to the term Havana syndrome, which is in reference to, again, these acoustic attacks. Bloodletting magic is exactly what it says. The idea that satanic or Wiccan rituals that are performed whenever they use blood are more effective than they naturally are. And you can add a layer to that and say the reason that people go disappearing in these elitist rings and things like that is because they need the blood for whatever spells they perform.
Yo, bloodletting was like an old medical thing. They used to think that the human body keeps producing blood. So you can have too much blood and you'll like blow up or whatever. So bloodletting would be taking blood out of people's bodies. And obviously that's bullshit and you don't do that. Like, yeah, they used to use leeches or whatever.
Google Earth's black zones is exactly what it says. There are entire regions on Google Earth that are either blurred or completely blacked out. Some of these kind of make sense, weird. Like a lot of North Korea's military stuff is blacked out in order to not, cause a panic over that. However, some are much more odd, such as Anthrax Island, Roswell, New Mexico, and the Garden of Gethsemane. So yeah, make of that what you will. Crowdfunded assassination is again exactly what it says. The idea being that whenever there are these large elites, such as a president or a world leader who is wanting to be assassinated, obviously one person can't fund it, but on the deep web, there's these pots that people throw money into, and when it reaches a certain amount, an assassin is hired to take that person out. And of course, the conspiracy goes on to say this is all done through crypto, it's completely untraceable, done with aliases, and it leads to the idea that thousands, if not tens of thousands of people contribute towards these group killings. Serpent seed is another belief in the now multiple times mentioned.
Low-key, I believe that one, though. I would not be surprised people putting money in a pot to kill someone they don't like. Like, that does not surprise me at all. Yo, cryptocurrency paying for assassins is like literally Death Note, okay? Death Note has this untraceable weapon. Dude, paying assassins with cryptocurrency is the modern day equivalent of the Death Note.
Serpent seed is another belief in the now multiple times mentioned Gnostic religion. The belief essentially says that in the Garden of Eden, whenever Satan appeared to Eve in the form of a serpent, that he mated with her and the resulting child was Cain. The idea being,
oh shit! Mated with the snake? Yeah, the fact that she mated with the snake is actually that's not just the Gnostic religion. That's based on a lot of like religious texts in Judaism and Christianity. NTR with the snake, bruh. Yeah, but the whole Cain being the son of the snake thing, that's Swagmaster says it's not true though. Well, clearly Swagmaster was there to see it. I'm young, okay? I'm a mere child in comparison to Swagmaster Mario 256, who's clearly been there to see and make sure that this did not happen. Thank you, Swagmaster Mario 256. I'm honored to have someone in chat who's been alive for the last 6,000 years to have seen and proven all of that. That means a lot to me, Swagmaster. Thank you. Thank you for being a witness.
Being that as sin entered the world, and of course Cain was the first murder, it all came from this literal seed of the devil. Panopticon is an architectural design that was theorized by Jeremy Bentham in the 18th century. The idea for it being, it was supposed to be designed as a prison in which every single cell member could be watched from one position by one guard in a chair. However, the catch to it was, the cells were built in such a way that the prisoners could not tell at what time they were being watched. They just know that there was a potential that they could be watched, and therefore you could control a much larger population with a much smaller group of people. Bentham then went on to say this could be applied to hospitals, schools, other education centers, and obviously it's now used as an analogy to talk about state and totalitarianism in which the few govern the many. The Inunaki...
Bro, this whole few govern the many thing, social credit score bullshit, bro, China is so cringe. Or that's what I would have said if they wouldn't sponsor me. That's right, Genshin Impact. I got your back. Much love to you guys. May you sponsor many videos in the future.
Village is a story that goes like this. In Japan during the Edo period that lasted from 1603 to 1868, there was a village in the mountains that decided they did not want to be a part of the Japanese government and decided to become secluded to themselves. It was then figured out by outsiders that this was done in order to
So basically it's like Quebec. Okay.
practice the occult, such as blood rituals and sacrifices and things such as.
Blood rituals and sacrifices. So basically it's like Quebec. Okay.
This eventually led to an incident in which someone in the town slaughtered 33 people during one of these rituals. Because of this, the Japanese government at the time decided to take the village off of every map and simply cut off all roads and seclude it to itself.
What?
Now, when walking up the Inunaki Mountain, there is a sign that can be seen off the
So basically they were much more successful than Quebec. And they've become the Hidden Leaf Village. Unlike Quebec, which is the province hidden in the poutine.
road, which reads, Japanese regulations and constitutions do not apply here. What's even creepier about this village, more than any just standard haunted ghost town, is the theory says that these people are still alive, and after hundreds of years of inbreeding and demonic practice, they've become these subhuman monsters that kill and cannibalize anyone that walks up the mountain alone. It also hurts my feelings that Suicide Forest gets as much attention as it does, when I think stuff like this is way cooler.
Okay, interesting opinion. This man hasn't been saying a lot of his personal opinions. The one personal opinion is like, bro, Suicide Forest? Bro, that is so 2017, okay? Now it's all about the Inunaki Forest with the blood ritual, sacrifices, inbreeding, and demonic people that are violent. Yeah, baby, that's what it's all about.
The release has to do with prana, which is a popular subject of Eastern philosophy theory. Prana is, as far as I can equate it to, sort of a life force, which people can adopt and take on themselves and then express in different ways. Kind of like aura or ki energy, if you're familiar with those concepts. Several theories that I found say that upon death, all of the prana that is stored in the body is released, and this is sort of what some philosophies consider to be a soul, but it goes a step forward in saying that those around you at your time of death can absorb that prana and therefore be taking in part of your essence. 24-hour year could be in reference to two separate things. One of them could be the actual idea that every 24 hours we experience a full rotation around the sun, and that the Earth's rotation is baloney.
Okay.
Other theory being that there is supposedly, according to legend, a 24-hour time slot that is missing from our historical record, which can be explained using the books of Isaiah and Joshua in the Old Testament of the Bible, in which God's
Oh, because he stopped the day. He made the day last longer so that the battle could have been during the day. So he held the sun in place. Well, or the earth, whatever. Yo! Okay, that's interesting.
stopped the earth for a total of 24 hours during a battle Joshua had and a prayer that Isaiah had. Not sure which one this is referring to, so there's both.
Although the Isaiah one, the whole idea is that the Isaiah one fixed the time, right? It was off by like 12 hours or whatever, and then during the Isaiah one, it went back. So now we're back on the right cycle or something. God just hacked the earth, okay? Bruh, this is just what Mark Zuckerberg's planning when he makes the metaverse, okay? He's gonna make the metaverse, and then he's gonna hold the earth still for 12 hours and be like, wow! Dev abuse.
Both, and just pick one, I guess. Corporate's kill list is exactly what it says. There are certain people who corporations have a problem with, because even if they compete with each other on the market, they definitely have an understanding with each other when it comes to the deep state. Therefore, there are certain people that they want dead. Max Spies, which I mentioned earlier, would absolutely be an example of that. The Man from Earth was a book written in 1983 by Gordon R. Dixon. The concept of this book was later...
Why is everyone that wrote a book that's either named Dick or Dixon or like one of those? Like, come on.
adapted into a Star Trek episode by Jerome Bixby, and then later a movie by the same name. The plot of the story is that a man who is 12,000 years old tells his colleagues about his entire experience living through the life of Christ and the rise of humanity and Babylon and all the empires falling to the present day. The theory in this is that the original author, George R. Dixon, actually is either this man himself or experiencing it, and theories range with his predictions of history and his discrepancies that have happened throughout history. But pretty much the idea that Gordon used this book as a way to sort of confess to the readers of his true nature. Interdimensional Bigfoot's exactly what it says.
What? How am I supposed to take this seriously? This is a conspiracy theory called interdimensional Bigfoot? What the frick? Oh my god. Dude, people in alternate realities are just watching Connor's videos. Interdimensional Bigfoot, where NFTs aren't made fun of. Oh my god.
Those familiar with parallel universes will also be familiar with the idea of portals.
Dude, why does the Bigfoot face look like he just fucked your mom?
The idea that there could be beings that could willingly transport between dimension to another, which would explain why something like
C-Dog VA, when he gets all the Infinity Stones, be like... Okay, there's way too many jokes I can make right here.
Bigfoot has never been seen. There are also symptoms that occur with these interdimensional portals, such as fauna changing and certain acoustic vibrations in the air. And looking out throughout history, this can not only explain Bigfoot sightings, but also things such as Mothman's appearance and other various cryptids, saying that maybe they're not just creatures like animals as we think of them, but more like these higher order interdimensional beings. Organic black helicopters have...
Bro, cryptids are also really cool. I would do a cryptid iceberg stream.
That's two different stories behind it, one of which being the idea that there are these black helicopters that can be seen passing over, especially the United States very often, that don't have any identity markings of what country of origin they belong to. They normally fly in groups, and they never have any distinguishable...
Why are they organic black helicopters? Like, non-GMO black helicopters? Like, vegans? Only flown by vegans?
Pilots, the idea of this being that this is an alien creature or some kind of cloaking mechanism, especially since these are normally sighted around the time of UFOs appearances. The other theory being that there are these microscopic nanobots that look like helicopters that are injected into people's bloodstreams, and at any moment will cause people to turn into a helicopter.
No, that can't be real. There's no way that's an actual theory that someone thought might be true, right? Okay, dude. All right, dude.
Moving on. Manatees are humans are exactly what it says, the main idea being...
What? First interdimensional Bigfoot and then manatees are humans? Bro, I mean, to be fair, dude, actually, manatees are humans. That would explain something that I actually saw recently. Oh my god, that's crazy. Yo, check this out. Whoa. I never thought of it like this before. This is nutty, guys. Check this out. Dude, look. Manatees are humans. I had to do it, I'm sorry. A majestic creature.
That back in history at some point there was a branching off point between humans and manatees, and that's why there are similar features between the two. However, the further statement of this is that manatees are either the descendants of some Atlantean sea people, or even cursed sailors who were lost at sea and became so accustomed to it that their bodies were transformed through magic and witchcraft into manatees. The John Titor Project was a reference to forum posts that took place between 2000 and 2001. In these, a man who said his name was John Titor said he was from the year...
John Titor! Holy crap! It's the guy from Steins Gate! It's the guy from Steins Gate! Yo, what? The guy that claims he was from the future? No way! Yo, that's so cool!
2036, and he had come back in time to retrieve an old computer that can properly do simple code in order to fix a problem in the modern day. Some believe this to be the now recognized Unix 2038 problem, which would oddly make sense for someone in 2000 to say, claiming to be a time traveler. From that, John Titor answered several questions, saying that there would be a civil war in the United States, a brief but deadly World War III, and would eventually lead to a new prosperous age of technology and industrialization. Russian crime dungeons was hard to find any information on. I think this is referring to gulags, which for those who don't know is essentially these Russian prisons or dungeons in which political prisoners most often are thrown in indefinitely and sort of left to fend for themselves in order to survive. So it's sort of like literally throwing people into a hole so that they're not a problem to you anymore. Universal communion.
It was born in the dark.
Is a concept in predominantly Catholicism that communion can be taken by everyone of every religion. They don't necessarily have to be Catholic. However, I do have to mention that in research for this, even on Catholic sites, I found several mentions of the exact phrase New World Order of Christianity and all religions coming together.
No freaking way. They called it No World Order on the official site? Wait, you've got to be kidding. Wait. Universal communion, and it's talking about, yes, the church and accepting Jesus and Christ and all of that cool stuff. This scene from Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my favorite examples of the communion of the saints. For those who haven't seen the film, the character Groot can only say a few words throughout the entire movie. He says, I am Groot, over and over again. In the final scene of the film, Groot sacrifices himself for the one he loves, and they all unite in a special way. Finally, the last words we hear from Groot are, we are Groot. The perfect example of communion and sacrifice. Oh my god, no freaking way. No way, this is even better than New World Order. Dude, this is the best thing I've ever seen. This is on an actual Christian website. No way. Oh my god. Yes, of course I'm using a VPN. You think I'd go on Universal Communion without a VPN? If they're gonna quote Groot, then they can say New World Order.
So I'm guessing this is an idea amongst elitists that all religions can be combined into one through the idea of universal communion. There Are No Force is actually a very poetic one that I'm a fan of, even if I don't necessarily believe it. It's the idea that every forest as we know it is not a forest and simply the small sprouts or stems of what are really trees. Well, then what are really trees?
What?
All the mountains that we see, from mountain ranges to plateaus, are the shaved off tops of trees, and the trees that grow up from them are just sort of like the grass sprouting out from its grass. It gives this beautiful idea that the world used to be a giant, magnificent forest, and that something caused all of that to be destroyed. The theory goes on to say that rocks as we know them are simply the pebbles of what used to be rocks. And again, this whole idea that the earth used to be this giant utopia that's been lost. Asian blood types is in reference to the idea that in Asian culture, specifically Korean culture, blood types are often used as a basis to determine one's personality. From everything I read on this, it's kind of similar to how in the United States people base personalities, or some people base personalities off of their astrological sign. So this is sort of like the Asian equivalent of that. Ghost condensate is kind of
Oh, that you're a Cancer? Oh my god, that's crazy. I'm an Aquarius. No way.
Difficult to explain. This is the theory that I mentioned earlier when talking about the reactionless drive. I'm going to try to quickly
Typical Capricorn. Oh my god.
summarize. So from my understanding, a ghost in a physics spectrum is a
Condensed
number
ghost.
or fact.
That's like when you fart in a pickle jar and close it really tight for a couple of weeks, and then open it later and you can still smell the spark. That's like ghost condensed, my theory.
Factor that cannot be determined and sort of appears on its own. So it is like the in-between.
Oh my god, you're O negative? We're so incompatible!
Variable whenever you're trying to figure out how a system works. A ghost condensate would be a byproduct of that contributes a little more energy than originally thought because of factors we can't take into account. The theory with ghost condensate is that if it is harnessed correctly, this little bit of power can be recycled on itself over and over and over and eventually create a reactionless drive. See, what do y'all need college for? You got me. Breatharianism is a philosophy that is very, very closely related to Ainedia, which is sort of a mystic Eastern religion, and it all has to do with prana, which I mentioned earlier. The idea of breatharianism being that if someone balances their ki right and properly figures out how to withstand their own body's state of homeostasis, they can survive with no food and in some cases even no water. There's people who've done very in-depth videos on it better than I can, but essentially there have been people who have gone months at a time under surveillance without eating or drinking, while at the same time there have been total fakes who have said they haven't eaten in years, and then someone finds a picture of them at Thanksgiving eating. So yeah, it goes both ways. Famously, breatharianism is known as a pseudoscience because several people who have tried a diet of nothing have died, non-surprisingly.
Oh my god, they tried a diet of nothing and they died of hunger? What? Who would have thought?
And obviously casted doubt onto this entire philosophy. Memphis rap.
They cast doubt. A lot of people tried this diet. There were no survivors. This is casted doubt on the entire...
is a brand of rap that originates from Memphis. The original name for most of this is horrorcore, as a lot of the music is composed of noises, has lyrics that discuss murder and suicide and other heavy concepts. It gives an overall feeling of creepy, with most people who listen to it describing that they feel like they're not supposed to be doing it. The 3-6 Mafia, which is now a famous rap group, and if you think about the name 3-6 or 666 Mafia, was one of the pioneers of the genre, with their original tracks having lyrics such as "The Daughter of the Devil" and talking of Satanism and rituals and things.
Bro, it's rap music, okay? Rap music is the only industry where edginess is appreciated, okay?
Such as. Idea being that Memphis rap is either a confession of demonic events or sort of a inner look at it. Your relief map, or as it's also known, the map of the creator, is in reference to a white stone slab that was found in 1995. While doing research in the Ural Mountains, a Russian researcher discovered these texts from the 18th century that said there were several stone slabs that were used as maps of the area. The researchers then went out to try to discover whatever the stone slab was and came upon a small village in the Ural Mountains that brought forward one of the slabs. On the stone slab was a perfect one-to-one replica of the valley they were in, but not only that, it had perfectly mapped out irrigation systems, dams, and other large-scale structures that could not have been built at the time the stone was dated, which was anywhere from 8,000 to 120 million years old. Not only that, but the edges of the map, from what it looks like, have been cut off, implying that it is a piece of a bigger structure. This is, as you could imagine, one of the reference points used when talking about ancient aliens. Bitcoins created by banks is, again, exactly what it says. The idea that banks realized that currency was dying out and there therefore needed to be a new currency, so they developed the subversive currency to banks while they secretly own it and are just perpetuating the cycle they were already on. One of the main theories behind this is that the man who created Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, is an alias and the man has never been discovered, with the idea being that big banking groups simply made this fake alias in order to create their own enemy, so they can play both sides. Psychotropic warfare is in reference to times that drugs such as LSD or shrooms have been implanted into either water supplies or food supplies in order to mentally stunt the enemy. Not only enemies in the traditional sense, but a lot of this can be traced back to in the 60s and 70s after MK Ultra, whenever the government was putting acid into impoverished area water supplies to simply see what would happen or to quell dissonance in the people of those areas. Basically the idea that you can poison the minds of whoever you're up against. New chronologies and history denials can go very deep, but sort of to shorten it, it's just the idea that there are now new theories that entire 100-year periods of history are either made up or simply filled in. Oh my god,
the Void Century, baby!
There's an idea that Egypt, as it's historically believed, is 300 years older than it actually was, so therefore that's 300 years of history that's just been entirely fabricated. A lot of this relates to biblical history, which is just using the Bible as a basis for history, and the idea that there are a few year discrepancies that exist between the two, so using the Bible as a hardcore basis for it leads to some miscommunications between how long things really existed, which would mean that the Earth isn't exactly as old, or at least human history isn't as old as we theorize it to be. China's real population is in reference to the fact that China now reports that they have about 1.4 billion people in their populace. However, using things such as TV broadcasting and train and vehicle amounts and other things such as which can be used to measure the amount of a population, it puts the country at about 500 million. Now, what that means is that there are definitely people who would not communicate communicate in ways like trains or TV or cell phone, so therefore it's more than 500 million. However, at the same time, there's absolutely no way to know how many people there actually are if they have no way of being seen through government registries. That would mean that China is artificially inflating its numbers even double as much, working off of this theory, in order to just seem like a bigger world power, and more specifically to have a higher population than India, who historically they do not have a good time with. So,
oh my god, that's so sus! Dude, China, oh my god, China is so cringe. You can't trust a word, bro. You can't trust a freaking word. It's like lies on top of... I mean, as someone sponsored by Genshin Impact, a Chinese game that looks absolutely beautiful, I have to say, China is poggers, and I too, me and my 1.6 billion children, not saying that at all because I want to make it sound like I have more children than China, we completely agree with the notion of lying our asses off for the sake of keeping society in a higher standing in the world. Truth is subjective, after all, I would argue, and all of my wives have been working very hard to produce my 1.6 million heirs, and Genshin, in fact, does sponsor me, which is why China is extremely poggers for lying their asses off all the time. Just saying.
So basically, China fluffing the numbers by a lot in order to seem more important than they are. Since China is kind of one of the last bastions of the entire idea that the government is always right in the modern world, I could definitely see that, and it does make sense. And that will do it for the first part of...
Bruh, let's get right into part 2.
Mental problems theory is one of those that's kind of vague and can have different meanings. Given the context for the rest of the items on this tier, I believe...
Mental problems theory? Isn't that just the commentary community on YouTube? The mental problems theory. Oh, no. No, I take it back, commentary community. You guys are cool. Just saying, commentary community, I love you all. And when I got into drama a couple months ago, and all you guys were making videos on me, and they were all kind of pro-Nux, it was pretty pog. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty cool of you guys, not gonna lie. But mental problems theory is kind of... Anyway.
It's referring to the theory that those with mental issues are not actually suffering deficiencies. They are instead suffering from advanced physiology, and that whatever they're experiencing is the newfound roots of the next step in human evolution. So basically, those who experience mental illness are just using an advanced physiology than the rest of us. Highway trolls is in reference to the phenomenon that occurs whenever you're riding alone on the highway at night and begin to see things either running off the road or just out of view of your headlights. What's interesting about this specific phenomenon is that several people report seeing the same things in the same areas, but it's not like a cryptid or Bigfoot as you traditionally think. Instead, it's these shared hallucinations that occur on dark roads at night, leading people to believe that while this may be a creature, it may also be a sort of fourth dimensional being that is only expressed during these sort of twilight moments. OOO, or object-oriented ontology, as it's called, is in reference to a concept.
This is just furry shit, just back in the dark ages.
Concept in metaphysics that says while we as humans constantly think of our existence in a sort of selfish way, that the natural world has to revolve around our sense of perception, that's not necessarily the case. And some things that we can't explain will never be explained because the universe doesn't conform to our understanding, if that makes sense. Also, I just want to mention this now, putting this on the iceberg as OOO made this near impossible to find, so whoever made this, thanks, appreciate it. Also, while I'm off topic, normally what I do whenever researching for these things is I will find some new board on 4chan or Reddit or something like that, and just follow along until someone links like an article or an old forum page to try to find out information on some of these things. But it's gotten to the point that, for example, on 4chan, when trying to look this up, someone said, oh, don't worry, this guy right here, he'll cover it in his next video.
Ah, suffering from success.
So I go to the link and it's me, which is really cool and it means a lot. And it's so wild to think that like the places I'm using for information are now like looking to me for information, which is so cool. But at the same time, that was where I was getting the information. Yeah. So
but
I do want to say it really means a lot how much this channel and series has grown thanks to you all. And
you're killing it.
I can't thank you enough.
So
it really does mean a lot.
You deserve
anyway, back to the theories. Arizona Ghost Radio is in reference to a supposedly unmanned radio program that occurs in the desert around Phoenix, Arizona. What's odd about this program is no one can find the exact person who is mandating it or putting out the songs on it. And furthermore, all the songs put out are non-known sort of background records from popular bands. Also, there's no advertisements on the radio station, and the only indication of anything on it besides music is every couple hours there'll be a loop that names itself as 103.1 KCDX.
Oompaville was actually telling me about this. That's actually cool.
No one knows who it is, and it seems to be just an empty radio station in the desert with no known source. Windshield pitting epidemic, or the Seattle windshield pitting epidemic, is in reference to a phenomenon that occurred in Seattle in 1954. Beginning in Seattle, people at the same time began to notice that their cars had small holes in the windshield. This was such a problem that people within small neighborhoods began all reporting the same problem, and theories range from nuclear testing to sand flea eggs bugs to hail falling from the sky. What was interesting was that no other windows on the car were damaged, nor the houses or any other piece of glass, just the windshields of people's cars. On top of that,
What? That's so weird. Yo, what? Just the windshield of a lot of people's cars were damaged? That's... Ooh, shit's a bingo! Something weird going on.
Spread from Seattle to down the coast, all the way into California. This became such an issue that Dwight D. Eisenhower, the then president, was even contacted over it in order to try to find some explanation for this. Police were called out on more than 15,000 calls for windshield damage, with a reported 3,000 of them being absolutely confirmed to be true. And while no one knows to this day exactly what happened...
That's a big number! Bugs were just built different back then. Oh, damn, these mosquitoes bumping at the windshields, destroying them.
Primary theory behind it is that it was just a case of mass delusion. That one person heard that someone's windshield was damaged, so then they noticed their windshield being damaged. But was it at such a scale and people all over the country?
15,000 people? That's not just, oh, his windshield is damaged, maybe mine is damaged. Please.
Began to realize that, oh no, my windshield's got holes in it for some reason. I don't know, it's a weird one.
JoJo
North Korea ghost ship.
That's the work of a JoJo stand.
Is in reference to the fact that every year off the coast of Japan, about a dozen ships that seem to be from North Korea wash up on the shore with either a dead crew or a completely missing crew. Theories range from everything to alien abduction to sea monster attacks, but it's all...
Yo, 12 a year? That's crazy. That's not like it happened once. 12 a year?
Odd that all these ships keep leaving, are never accounted for, and then will one day just wash up on the shores of Japan with a completely dead or missing crew inside. Also, not to tie in my own theories on this here, but that's the exact same area that the bloop was heard from, so...
Oh, in case we weren't here for that part, the bloop was a giant sea monster sound. The sound that could only be created by the lungs of a creature 3 times the size of a blue whale.
Neo-dinosaurs, or new dinosaurs, is simply in reference...
It shows a picture of a chicken. Let's freaking go.
The fact that there are several new species of animals that have very strong similarities to extinct dinosaur species. This is either evidence that all dinosaurs didn't necessarily die out, they simply adapted, or the idea that some species thought to be extinct may be living somewhere else on Earth, or somewhere else in Earth, as certain theories propose. Human hunting is exactly what it says. It is the fact that throughout history there have been cultures that have prided themselves on hunting humans for sport, everything from the Colosseum to ancient Aztecs. Theory goes a step forward
to Fortnite
and says that modern day elites are still doing it in their super secret areas and forests and things such as simply a form of blood sport or ritual sacrifice. Teeth implants at birth actually has 2 theories on it, one of which being that whenever you are born, doctors implant baby teeth into you in order to do something, I guess. Whereas the more common belief is at birth, doctors mess with your molar joints in order to cause wisdom teeth problems later in life, in order to create a triangle of money in which you have to pay to get wisdom teeth, from paying to be born in a hospital and blah blah blah, healthcare bad. But furthermore,
oh my god, what? There's a theory that doctors force... Yeah, truth is, why... Okay, alright, theory of evolution, right? Let's be real here. Theory of evolution. Why do we still grow wisdom teeth? They're useless. They hurt us like hell. They ruin your teeth because you're squashed, okay?
More people cite this as an explanation as to why not everyone needs their wisdom teeth removed. Stuxnet revival studies is in reference to the Stuxnet.
Yo, Stuxnet! That's the crazy cybersecurity Israeli thing.
Computer virus. The virus was used against Iran's nuclear weapon program in 2009, and although there's no direct evidence of it, it's believed that the virus itself was a joint operation between Israel and the United States. The virus essentially wiped out Iran's weapons program, but now that that virus is out there, there are theories that specific groups of hackers or countries are trying to revive that virus in order to use it on separate world systems and potentially destroy an entire system's economy or infrastructure using a line of code. Urine fasting is exactly what it says, that there are...
Urine fasting? It's like, ah yes, I have been living off urine for the last 12 years, but now I am fasting from my urine. I will be drinking water and Monster Energy drink.
Properties to urine that can be partaked of, and I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Yo, you should use code Nux on G Fuel. I will admit, with 1,000,000% certainty, it is way better than urine, and it's poggers. Code Nux, G Fuel, remember that.
Tsuki is in reference to the Suzuki procedure that popped up in 2017 on 4chan. In 2017, a user by the name of Tsuki...
Wait, isn't Tsuki the name of PewDiePie's merch?
He popped up on 4chan and began telling people that they were giving away these sort of entry passes to escape the system space. According to them, we do not live in the correct reality, and every time that you die, you ascend one reality up if you follow a certain number of steps.
Bro, every time you die, you just level up? Bro, life is just like Dark Souls. Have you noticed?
Tsuki was offering a way to the next step, and they considered what we were in now to be the system space. Therefore, if you do what Tsuki says, whenever you die, and without killing yourself, because that was stressed several times, you would then go up to the next tier.
That time I died without killing myself and got transported into a better world.
Another one of those, we live in a simulation, the world is not real theories that come from this specific user.
Ha! He said come.
Accelerationism is a political philosophy that goes off the idea that things are going to continuously work in cycles, so things will get worse before they get better, essentially, and that the best form of action, while we are capable, is to make things worse now so that we can hurry on to the rebuilding process. So essentially, if there is an economic system that is causing trouble in a country, the best thing to do is to accelerate that system as fast as you can and hurry up and get to the collapse so that you can work towards the rebuilding. Sticking to the Greeks, Greek magnetic sky is in reference to the fact that most of the Greek architecture we see, such as temples and state houses, are all angled or sort of
Bro, Zoot's detached too. It's a Yu-Gi-Oh reference.
drifting in a way towards their magnetic field, and it lies in such a way that all of the stars and solar bodies can be seen from certain hilltops in Greece, implying that there was an extraordinary amount of astronomical architecture that went into these buildings, or aliens. The theory is saying that's aliens, because of course it is. Quantum entanglement is a very sort of hard to understand concept.
Not a
I'm going
theory.
to do my best to explain it in an easy
conspiracy,
way.
though.
So if you'll remember how I mentioned quantum suicide in tier 2 and how small particles react differently to things in the real world, quantum entanglement is in reference to the idea that when two of these microscopic particles come together, they sort of act as one particle. So therefore, things that are amassed together will begin acting as if they are one unit instead of several, and their quantum mechanics become entangled. So take that a step and are instead subject to whatever others or even the universe does around us. Dr. Robert Morse became famous with his series of veganism when it comes to correct diets and detoxing. However, what he is most known for is pioneering the idea of iridology, which is that you can look at someone's eyes and from the way that their eyes are formed and imperfections in it, tell everything from what diseases they have to what they're lacking in their nutritional diet. Currently, it's still considered a form of pseudoscience. However, there are people, including...
That's not pseudoscience, okay? Psychology is pseudoscience. That's not pseudoscience. That's what they call fake news.
Robert Morse, who firmly believe that the secrets to the human body can be seen simply by looking into the eye.
The eyes are the windows of the soul.
Psychiatry is exactly what it says. The idea that different ethnicities and cultures have different psychiatric effects in their brain and therefore need to be treated differently. However, you can apply this to a sort of historical view and say that the reason these different groups have different thought patterns is because of historical events that have occurred to them. This is very similar to the toxoplasmosis thing that I mentioned in whatever tier that was, where I said that this specific parasite has changed the course of human history. Well, take the parasite out of it and imagine that people have been changed over the course of history because of events that have happened to them, and therefore entire countries or ethnicities because of the psychological effects that have happened to them over time. Harmonic sync is in reference to the fact that all sound waves give off a frequency, and that if two frequencies are matching each other, one can sort of become invisible under the other. This is both a concept when it comes to hidden messages and other weird MKUltra experiments, but can also be used as a way to sort of manipulate the mind or even damage it, as I mentioned before in the Havana incident, where sound waves supposedly broke people's minds. It could have been done using this method. Report from Iron Mountain was a book that was published from the perspective of a panel of government agents who were giving secret information of government proceedings to the population. In the book, it said that it was determined by government higher-ups that in order to maintain power and peace, that there always needed to be a state of war, because using that or disease or some other form of terror, the government can continue to assert itself for control. Theories about this book range from everything to this is a very good take and sort of satirical look at how the government works, to people who literally believe that it is an actual 15 group of government panelists who released this book against their higher-ups' wishes. Kundalini energy is a concept in Sanskrit mysticism. Similar to ki energy and things like that from other Eastern philosophies, it's the idea that someone can embody this ethereal energy around them, but Kundalini energy goes a step forward and says that they can manifest it in their real-world life in order to perform certain tasks or functions. So basically a sort of hidden power that the user can call upon.
Bro, it's legit the avatar state. Oh my god. Kundalini is just the avatar state. You just explained the avatar state. Bro, what?
In a jar, or brain in a vat as it's often called, is the now sort of well-known idea that if you were to take a human brain out of the body and hook it up to a computer, and in that computer was a simulation of the real world, there is no possible way for that brain to figure out that it is not itself in a simulation. This relates back to the whole concept of I think, therefore I am, and that nothing can absolutely be known besides your own thought process, because everything can simply be a simulation. Universe People was a cult that originated in Europe in the 90s. This cult was sort of...
They're called Universe People, guys. They are called Universe People.
Your standard ideas of UFO and crazy mysticism. It had ideas from biblical philosophy and Eastern philosophy, and simply explained that figures like Jesus were extraterrestrials throughout history. They faced a lot of scrutiny after the suicide of the Heaven's Gate cult in the United States, and supposedly disbanded.
Yes, Jesus, alien. Why is alien so much easier to understand than prophet?
However, there's theories that several influential people in European politics are secretly a member of this cult, and they are planning for some grandiose whatever cults do. The Umo case is one of the more well-known events when it comes to extraterrestrials. In the 1960s, 15 people around Spain began...
No, I'm not Christian. I don't know why this came up so many times. Chat, over the last 4 hours, so many people have been asking me, Nux, are you Christian? I am not.
Receiving these letters claiming to be that of alien life. According to these letters, they didn't want to make their presence known to man and simply had questions about how humans operate. These letters correctly identified several military events that were not known to the public that occurred in the decades leading up to these letters' messages, and even said that they found Earth because of signals being sent by a Norwegian tanker in 1934, which it was later proven had actually happened. According to these extraterrestrials, they were simply interested in how life worked on Earth and were very interested in concepts such as art, and after short correspondence with these 15 people, they all simply vanished. Segregated internet is in reference to the fact that there are obviously segregations on the internet depending on race or ethnicity and religion.
Isn't that just 4chan? Isn't that just Twitter? Isn't that just TikTok? Isn't that just the commentary community on YouTube?
However, the theory goes a step further and says that these are purposeful segregations given by the elites or higher ups in order to keep people segregated from each other and therefore continue to build up animosity towards each other so that people don't become a collective and look towards the real issues, i.e. the ones causing it. Symbiogenesis is a rather well-known concept in biology. As a matter of fact, it is the theory of how the mitochondria came to be, and it is the idea that certain biological organisms over time have began to adopt other biological organisms as part of their mainframe and continue to evolve with them.
Like
the reason for the mitochondria I mentioned earlier is because mitochondria always have a different DNA than the cell they're inside of, implying at one point that it was an entirely separate organism. This theory goes a step further and says it's happened with much more macro creatures, and even goes to say that perhaps the reason for human sudden evolution throughout our timeline of existence was because we began to absorb other creatures. So yeah, that's a nice thought. The Antikythera mechanism is regarded as many as the first analog computer, estimated to be made around 100 BC.
What? 100 BC? God damn!
It was a complex system of 36 bronze gears that turned in such a way that, from what we can tell now, was made to resemble the passage of the moon and even predict abnormalities in the moon, such as eclipses and things such as. What's interesting is, given the time, this is much more advanced than anything else the Greeks had invented, with some even stating that the inside of it looks like a clock. The Getty ruins are a series of ruins found on the coast of Kenya in the 1920s. What's interesting about these ruins is, while there's no exact history of who made them, it seems to be a massive trading station for the maritime people of the Somalia coast. However, there's no clear example of why these ruins became abandoned, especially considering that at the time that they would have been vacated, surrounding areas were much more impoverished than them, so it makes no sense as to why people would just leave the city empty. However, local tribes say that the ruins hold what they know as the Old Ones, or spirits of ancient priests who began to run off people and demanded that the city be kept for themselves. So to this day, it's sort of known as a haunted ruins that if you do approach, you must approach with caution. Theosophist geology comes from the idea of theosophism, which is very closely related to Gnosticism, which I'm going to have to make a deeper dive. I mentioned it like 12 times at this point. Theosophism is essentially a combination of several world religions, everything from Judaism to Nazism and everything in between, that says that...
Did he call Nazism a religion? What the hell?
Actually a combination of several world religions, everything from Judaism to Nazism.
Everything from Judaism to Nazism. Nani? I don't know, that's interesting. Yeah, okay, alright.
Theism and everything in between, that says that truth and understanding are at the heart of every religion, and therefore there's something to be pulled out of every religion in hunt for the truth. Where this comes into geology is the idea that both rocks as they are found on Earth can hold these sort of secret meanings and hidden truths, and the idea of catastrophism, which is basically the idea that the world itself was formed through catastrophes, and that without catastrophes, true meaning cannot be known. It's sort of a really deep philosophy that's hard to explain in such a short amount of time, but basically the idea that rocks hold hidden value, and from that we can find the true meaning of existence. Anatta is a concept from Buddhism, and says that there is no soul as we understand it or self of a person, and instead you yourself or anyone is the manifestation of the spirits or the world interacting around them. In other words, you yourself are not independent and your own creature, you are simply an amalgamation of the universe's energy around you. 40th tithe was kind of hard to find any solid information on. The closest thing I could is the concept of teruma, which is a practice mentioned in Exodus in the Bible that's still carried out by...
Bruh, 40th tithe? That's not a conspiracy, that was a tax. It was a tax given to priests, that you would give a 40th or 50th or 60th of your crops to priests. What?
The closest thing I could is the concept of teruma, which is a practice mentioned in Exodus in the Bible that's still carried out by several sort of more Jewish traditions, but it's the idea that the priest of whatever temple or system that you're under deserve 1/40th of your earnings to provide for themselves directly. Now, this has been used in a modern sense in much more nefarious ways, and all the information I could find on it sort of hints at priests and pastors using this to sort of steal money from their people beyond what they're already giving. But essentially the concept that higher ups in religion are demanding a percentage of your wealth for them specifically instead of necessarily the work of God. Polywater was a theory that was derived by Russian scientists in the 80s, and it's the idea that by running water through capillary tubes over and over, you can create a sort of mini water, which is just water compressed in the same space that one water molecule would normally be, creating a sort of thick, viscous type of water that both has a higher boiling point and lower freezing point, as well as containing more hydrogen and oxygen given its surface area. While since this has been sort of proven as pseudoscience, the theory goes to say that Russia invented it as...
You don't know what the word pseudoscience means, dog. I love your video, by the way, but you don't know what the word pseudoscience means. The term a proven pseudoscience does not make sense. If it's proven to make sense according to science, then it's science. And if it's proven that it doesn't make sense according to science, then it isn't pseudoscience, it's bullshit.
As a sort of way to
Just
invigorate their troops, because you could get
I've seen some good ass slime hentai based on polywater, not gonna lie.
the same sustenance out of water in a much smaller amount, meaning that preservations were easier to carry. Furthermore, it goes on to say that Russia has beat us scientifically in more ways than the US would like to think. HGP defunded is in reference to the Human Genome Project. From 1990 to 2003,
Oh shit, this do be crazy stuff.
a collaboration of the world's best scientists were put together in something called the Human Genome Project. The purpose of this was to determine the properties of the base pairs of DNA that all DNA was made up of, or basically the GCAT that pretty much everyone's familiar with now. While officially the HGP was ended in 2003 because it was simply complete, the theory says that they instead lost funding and research was made up in order to make the public think that everything went well, and a lot of our understanding about DNA base pairs is simply filler for what they were unable to accomplish. Bedort, or bidigital O-ring test, is a sort of alternative diagnosing method in which the patient puts their fingers together in an O-ring shape, and depending on what the best method is to pull it apart, the doctor can diagnose either their dietary downsides or what diseases they have. Very similar to iridology, in which it is a very uncouth way of determining people's health problems through a sort of pseudoscience analysis. The cosmic butterfly and Rosalind Ballingall is in reference to an event that happened around the University of Cape Town in 1969. At the university, there was a rather well-known group of hippies or anti-war protesters known as the Cosmic Butterfly. From all the research I could find, they were your standard...
Cosmic Butterfly just sounds like a strip club. But okay, you can call them hippies, I guess.
You know, free love, anti-war, peace movement. Nearby, the majority of them...
The doctor says, here, put your fingers in a circle for Bedort so that I can pull it apart. Ah, yes, I can tell that you're fat.
lived at a place known as the Sugar House Commune. One of these was a girl from the UK known as Rosalind Ballingall. One day, according to witnesses, she got a Bible, which she took on a walk into the woods and was never seen again. Now, there are several weird sort of events surrounding this. For example, why would she, being as anti-religious as the group was known to be, take a Bible with her on a walk into the woods? Furthermore, whenever the family has been trying to be contacted about this event, they refuse to speak on it, as well as local police, who also, I should mention, have lost the police report since it's happened. Also, stories about the day specifically get kind of odd. For example, Rosalind's friends, who supposedly passed her on the way, said that she was staring off in the distance in a sort of trance and just continued walking. Also, her boyfriend, who was the only person who did not help in the search and rescue party, simply sat back at the front steps of their house and played the flute as everyone else did for her. I should also mention, the garden that she walked into is known as the Garden of Eden and is famous for several occult practicing and rituals that have occurred there. Since then, there have been several reports that as people drive through the area, they see a girl matching Rosalind's description in the back seat of their car, and even stories of children freaking out, saying that there's someone sitting in the back seat with them. Theory says that Rosalind was under the influence of Occult and used as a sort of sacrifice, and now her spirit haunts the woods of the Garden of Eden. And that is it for Tier 5. And I just realized we are halfway done with the iceberg.
Bro, halfway through the freaking conspiracy theory iceberg. Let's freaking go. Dude, I am loving this. This was a sick stream. Like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch. Stay weird, fam.